So folks, let's get here. So folks, here there is a very interesting subject here. This should be vanilla default in Blender, right? But apparently it's not, it's just scripting. So there's this disable or enable all constraints, bone constraints in this case, with one click. Can someone help out? So blah blah. So there's this guy who came up with here with some coding here, but Python, then there is some corrections, and so basically one is for changing the influence. There's some retakes, so maybe exactly I had to find a way. So but the information was given, that was it, just some perfectioning. So basically this is the disable all the bone constraints at once. So just import bpy object equal bpy.context.object. So recognize this object for the armature thing, armature object for bone in obj.pose.bones, for constraint, I think in bone constraint. So constraint mute, so true. So this will disable, right? Mute this true, disable all the bone constraints at once. And then the way to apply this is very bizarre, right? Not bizarre, there's for but I mean that it's not super trivial, so I had to check out how that would work. So let's do it. So I think it's Shift F1 for, no, it's Shift F, there's the Python console here. So it's like I would copy paste this, right, entirely. So for example, then we can re-enable those bone constraints, so con.mute equals false, or we can change the influence, right? Set influence to 0, set influence to 1. So it's just, I think, nearly the same thing, except that. So thanks for the folks there in Blenderartist for that bring up the question and the solutions. Constraint influence, I don't know if this is constraint, but doesn't matter. So, and so basically in my case I just want these two ones. So I just copy this, and before I paste, yeah, because I've heard sometimes we cannot write and sometimes we can write. I don't get it, the text yet. So you see here that if I'm doing, for example, wave painting, so a real case scenario where that will be particularly interesting, you see that the deformed bones, they are, well, I cannot pose them. So this is very annoying, because if we not only will have to select the tweak bone of it, right, its respective tweak bone, then we lose the, we have to make one click then go back, and so this is, we don't, so this is not very nice, right? Or we could try to, no, we can only have one bone selected at a time apparently, because this is, no, yeah, so we could do this, but this is risky anyways. So and there's another problem, folks, is that if I'm using some masking here, then if I would need to swap the bone that I need to, it will unmask my stuff. So I have to Control Z, it's a mistake that will ruin the mask, or I'll have to turn off the mask, right? I have a shortcut here, O key, P key. So to facilitate this, I don't know, this is new, so this is the default thing. So I have to unmake the mask, disable the mask option, then change the bone, and see, it's very, if I were to do this, change, get here, or as and lose the mask. So this is super confusing, but we can use to it. So the ideal thing here, okay, I want to disable all the bone constraints of this, but this is one by one, like it's oh, but then you can maybe you can get turn off like these ones, okay, but okay, turns out with hold alt key, right? So but then turns out that there are different bone constraints, and some will be turned off. The shrink, yeah, yes, here eventually we'll get rid of all of them, but this is really not optimal, right, folks? So yeah, so it's just not really nice, right? So instead, let's get them back. Yeah, at this point I should have done some sort of Control Z. Maybe it'll be easier if I just, yeah, let's do this. And holding Alt, in principle this should do for the ones which have similar names, right? Then it will, if Blender recognize they are the same, then in some ways then it will automate, so otherwise no. So this is okay, just organizing this stuff. So instead what we can do here, of course, then we could think that there is, oh, but then you can just disable the rest position, great, but then the bones, you cannot pose any bone, right? So it's over, game over, folks. And so well, there's nothing left. Oh, then just, I don't know, delete the bone. So this is not none of those solutions are fine, right? So this is where this thing comes in handy. So Control C, Control V, enter, and I think I need to enter this once again, and now it has validated. Of course this might cause some issues because now you see I can pose now, and the bone constraints, they were all disabled, and now I can withend, but that on the backdrop the downside is that if there were some setup from bone constraints that were setting a rest pose for what I was trying to rig, then this is not very nice, right? So this can still not ideal, but this can help a lot in certain situations, right? And so then to get back, we can just so here I haven't tried, but I could just copy paste this one. But if I copy paste here, okay, here I can just do this false, and immediately all the bone constraints are back. So that is real cool, right, folks? So scripting for noobs, there you go. So this is good stuff. I want to learn something about some Python at some point, but I never start because there are always other priorities. But it's interesting, and by doing this kind of stuff we already start to have some insight. So this can help a lot already, just knowing some basics and some usable cases, right? So this is probably the first use of scripting I'm doing in Blender that I understand a little that worth using. So that's it, folks. That's the highlight. By the way, I'll leave this in the video description, right, folks? So you can copy paste that, and also the link to that discussion. That's it.